Howdy, everybody. I'm going live today. Let me see if I can find me on here. Howdy. This is just a Q&A today. Trying to work on my computer to get it where I can see these chat things here. So I'm trying to watch the computer and then watch this here too. So trying to figure out how to manage all this stuff. Okay. Wow. Well, maybe I can get down here where I can see some chats on this thing. Do-do-do. All right, let's see. I can see Chad. Hey. Hey guys, what's up? From Canada. Hey Chief from Northern Ireland. Where you been, stranger? Hi. Wendy. Hello. Hi, Wendy. Howdy. Young Barkley. I'm doing great. Let's see. Learning computer technology like teaching old dog new tricks. You know it. So this is where, hey, Tim Ferguson, hello. Wendy Oates, send me some hearts, thank you. Between my phone over here and this, it's a little delay, so I might get temporarily distracted. But this is my way of giving back to the people that have sent PayPals or mailed me cash or a check. Hey, 1956 John, Finbar Martin, Dubai, United, Emirates, United, UAE. I can't remember, but that's United Emirates, I think. That's the Kingdom of the United Emirates, I think. Anyway, this is my way of trying to get back to you so you can ask me questions about my religious philosophy, law enforcement philosophy, or so forth. Missing y'all? Yes. I actually was sick 2 times. Right at the end of Alamos Park, Texas, I had got sick. And then Tim Ferguson, Arab. Okay. And anyway, basically, I had got sick at the tail end, which is why I didn't get to do my audit in Austin and in the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex like I had planned. And then I got a little better and I started to go out in East Texas and do some audits. And I got sick again, and it took me about 5 days to get over it. Then I had nearly a week I was okay, and then 2 or 3 weeks I was sick with a virus, and then I got over that. Then I had a body infection, so I had to fight that. So anyway, this is where you can ask me questions. Um, Mashed Potatoes Entertainment, thanks for fighting for my rights to film. Thank you. Bless you, Chief. Thank you. Joe Troanani. I'm sure I slaughtered your name. I apologize. Wish your son much love and prayers. He's doing fantastic. He's graduated. He's had a semester of college. He's doing well for those that's asking. Why has Patrick stopped doing audits? I don't know. I can try and call him up today or perhaps tomorrow and ask him and then try and give y'all an answer. I haven't talked to him in several weeks, so I don't know. And I have put some moderators on here. I finally figured out how to do that. And I think I got about 6 of them on here. I don't see none of them showed up right yet. And I may put some more on there because some people get it. And then some people's busy, and you never know who's going to be on here at any time. Uh, IN Mackenzie, hello from Stornoway Island of Lewis. You and Patrick should do more audits. Yeah, we should. I'll probably be back in Texas before too long. Sorry, Patrick has a full-time job now. Yes, he's had a full-time job for quite some time. I'd say since last time, just right after we did our audits before, he had got a full-time job. So he was trying to work the audits in around with it. My good buddy, the Hut Master's calling, but I can't answer him because we're live. We're live. Zano Belvins. Hey, Chief. Hey. Wendy Oates is yes. I'm not sure what for. But this is your chance to ask me a question and me to give you an answer about just whatever. It's kind of like an open lines. Zeno Belvins. Z-no. I guess that's how you pronounce it. Zeno. I'm sorry, but right on. Patrick is too much of a hater. You're not Tim Ferguson. I don't think he hates. I think he's had a lot of trauma from police at an early age. Hello from Texas, Sergeant Joe Friday. Hey, so many officers do not identify to the public. Is there a policy on that? That's from Fanbar Martin. Some states have a rule or regulation or a law. Some do not. Some departments have very strict and specific policies that they must. Some are silent on the issue. Now, there's a matter of ethics. There's a matter of right and wrong. What's fair? Now, for example, Wendy says, glad my son's rocking it. Okay, I'm trying to keep up with this screen over here and this screen over here. So if I get distracted, give me a minute. I will close in. So say your department doesn't have a policy. Morally and ethically, if you are on the taxpayer's dollar and you're in uniform and you're in the scope of your authority as a peace officer, constitutional peace officer, or statutory law enforcement officer, and a man or woman asks you your name, whether you've had contact with them or not, and some agencies say only if you've had contact with the person do you have to give your name. So that's up to each agency or office or so forth. Now, if you do your homework and if you are going to be an auditor, then you need to go through the Freedom of Information Act or through your state records request and say on there, hey, go there and ask for the policy on officers identifying themselves to the public. Ask for that specific policy. Then you read the policy and you see what it says. You may even want to get a pro bono attorney that's willing to work in civil rights issues and get an interpretation of what that policy means. Or you can write to the legal department of the city or the police department and say, I'd like you to expand on these words and meanings, and then give them an example. Should I be walking down the street and I come across a police officer and for whatever reason I ask his name and he refuses to give it? Is it a violation of policy? And where would I go from there? Now, actually, a lot of times what I've done is I have tried this out and I've asked an officer for their name just out of the blue for no reason. I just happened to pass and ask them their name. Usually I got a great response and it was no issue. And I've actually gone in and talked to their sergeant or their lieutenant or the chief, and I've said, you know, I just finished talking to your officer, and he identified, he was polite, he was nice, and I'd like you to have recognition. That's just like when I go into restaurants sometimes, uh, a server has gone up and above and beyond, and they wasn't even my waiter, and they said you look like you were trying to get some help, and I've gone and thanked the manager and named them. Well, the same thing with law enforcement. You know, a lot of times the reason you're asking for a name is because you think they've done something good. But they can kill that in about 10 seconds by saying, I refuse to give my name. Now, for example, in Alabama, there's not a state law that says that you have to identify yourself per se, a specific state law that says that. However, a great number of agencies have a strict policy that says you will identify yourself. Your son sings well. God is good. Where does he work? My son, he doesn't work. He's disabled. Let's see. Is there legal reasons why cops don't usually get arrested when they commit crimes? You can only make a complaint. Well, police officers are arrested. Constables, marshals, sheriffs, they're arrested all the time across the country for criminal acts. Now, just not giving your name would be like a departmental policy, and the department will decide if you got a written reprimand, if you got suspended, if you got fired, all those sort of things. Okay? Now, that's not a crime unless it's a state law, and then it would probably be a low grade misdemeanor, and they could actually settle that and maybe keep their job, but they might be on probation for 6 months or something, or it might stay in their file jacket for 90 days, and if they didn't have another complaint, it was removed. Uh, it's just, now, why? Here's a big thing that I got a lot of emails on. Why would an officer not identify? If he perceived you as a viable, immediate threat to him or his family, such as you was going to take his name and try and look him up on the internet and use some background checks and track him down and find out where he lives, and he thought you was going to harm him or his family, okay? But there should not be a general perception of that. It's how you approach them, the spirit, the mind, the attitude. How do you approach them, and how do they perceive you? Now, an automatic assumption is bad. If they thought you was trying to somehow get information on them and find out when they're on duty and ambush them or do other things, or you was going to interfere in an investigation, but if they don't identify, but you do got video or picture of them, and you take it, for example, to the chief of police or internal affairs, and they identify them, then they're going to pull the officer in and say, why did you not identify? What is your logic or reasoning? So then it's on the officer for his articulable reasoning why he did not. Let me see what else y'all been writing. Yes, there's good cops. Yes, I believed I was a great cop. Some might agree, some might disagree, but I think I was fair. In fact, because I had treated men like men and women like women, and I had gave them benefit of the doubt sometimes. And when I did have to arrest them, just like one guy, he had been to the Joint State Penitentiary twice, and I had transported him because of crimes he committed. I I don't put people in jail like, hey, I put you in jail. Your actions put you in jail. But I was the arresting officer. But when I was in trouble and they actually got out of prison, they had come to my aid. And this ain't just a one-time insulated incident. So, and I even questioned them. I was younger in my career, and I said, why did you help me? Jones, because you treated me like a man. You showed me respect. Respect gets respect. You know, you bring some, you get some. So you bring a lot of respect, you get a lot of respect. That's why we call you the king of the streets around here. Because you do people right, and you do favors for people. They're not illegal, It's unorthodox, but you do favors for people, but you don't do nothing you wouldn't tell the TV news about. Let me see what else y'all are writing. Is there a legal arrest when I cop? Okay, I read that one. Uh, there are no good cops. Glenn Gilman. Well, I'm going to disagree. I think there's lots of great cops. Now, there's lots of cops that misapply the law, violate departmental policy, and somehow they medically and psychologically got on the department when they should not have been on the department to start with, or agency or office. There's even people get elected to office that's got no reason being there. But it's a case by case. Let me see what else y'all got here. I don't believe there's any good cops anymore. Ian Lloyd. If there were good cops, they would not cover for the lives of bad ones. Well, hey, if you want to call it outed, I outed several bad cops. I know a lot of other cops that outed bad cops. And we got heat from a lot of other cops because they said, these are our brothers, and said, are you going to support this? Can you go home and tell your wife and children or grandchildren that you supported a bad cop? Well, not that you put it that way. So, each cop is like a fingerprint. He or she is unique. They bring their life experiences, good, bad, and indifferent. That's why you got some cops that will sit there and talk to you about a ticket for a dang hour if they're trying to issue a ticket, because they're going to try and rationalize to you why, and you're going to rationalize why not. Let's see what else. Don't seem to make law enforcement officers like that anymore. Oh, I know several. I know a man that's running for sheriff now that's an outstanding man. He and I have a few different philosophies, but he's a really good man, and I support him. I know people at the constable's office and some marshal's office and police that are great. Uh, they Some of them are new. Now I'm going to say that a lot of the new ones since 2001 have a super alpha mentality. It's like a cat and a mouse, you know. Let's see what else is going on over here. This yo-yo. Uh, I can tell you know some good cops. They're out there. Let's see. I just guess it never come to my attention of the auditors. If it weren't for the unfortunate means of bad police, to it's so bad for a few good cops, police might be more respected. Who knows? Well, I agree with a lot of that. Look, if you want respect, you need to give respect. Now, think about this. Okay, just flip the shoe around just for a minute and say any one of you are the police officer or the sheriff, constable, marshal, and you come up on a man or a woman. You don't exactly know what their intentions are, and if they seem a little hostile, a little aggressive, they seem like they're after you personally, then you kind of take this shielded, protected mentality to where you're trying to put something between you and them almost to say, hey, step back, give me some room here because now you actually feel threatened. You don't know what's going on. So, uh, Jim, hello, Chief. Good to see you. Bullet, Bullet SpongeBob. Yay! Real Jingy, my good buddy. So, in 40 years and a couple of months, I've met hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of great cops. I haven't met as many bad cops from my psyche. Now, I have probably run into a couple of hundred out of all these years that I would not hire to be a dog catcher in the ghetto, working for free. They were just bad men and bad women. They come from broken families. They didn't have many coping skills. They weren't socially acceptable, and a lot of them had been bullied as children. So if you have a grandfather, for example, that's an alcoholic, and then his son or daughter's an alcoholic, and then you become an alcoholic, uh, so forth and so on. So it's like a chain. So if your grandpa was a bully, and then your daddy or daughter was a bully, and then they bullied you, and the way you got around to things was you become a cop and you bully others. You see how it carries down? So a lot of these cops that are bad were bullies or bullied when they were children, and they grew up to become bullies themselves. Okay? Now you have others that come from a really good settled family. Their mom and dad's been married for 20, 30, 40 years, and they were brought up maybe in the church, they were brought up in civic organizations, yada yada yada. And they were mentally and physically sound in mind and body. They they're keeping things real. So long as you don't get nose to nose with them, you don't start waving your hands around like you're fixing to jump on them like King Kong. You don't use words and phrases like, you keep screwing around with me, I'm going to whoop your ass. Well, that's going to set them off. Woo! Even really calm people are going to get set off at that point. Yeah, Real Genius says describing child abuse. Yes. Well, they're in a cycle, okay? People can go to a psychiatrist or psychologist, and that's now some departments don't send police officers for a psychological exam because some states don't require it. Now, to me, that's common sense. What's between your ears? If it ain't right and it's broken, it's like going to work with two broken legs being a cop. How can you walk around and do your job? Okay? If your mind's broke, it has to be fixed. And a medical doctor, you could just answer a few questions and they just sign off because you physically appear okay and they don't see nothing that jumps out. So you get a psychologically dislodged officer out there with a badge and a gun and life and death decisions within his authority and scope of his duty. Let's see, cops come from abusive households. We need to study their minds. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Uh, Thank you. Let's see. Is Patrick? Let's see. Where's Patrick? Is he okay? So far as I know, he's great and still a free man. But I'll have to call and check. Somebody else had asked about that too. Uh, the biggest uh, perps of disorderly conduct are cops. Well, I can see that from your point of view. Okay. I mean, I can really see it. Said I used to know police officers that when they started with LAPD, their starting pay was just over 200 a month, but they really wanted to be good cops and they stayed there. Right, right, exactly. Now see, some people, this was me. I was a slow learner all the way up until the 8th grade. So I had to have remedial courses because I had learning disabilities. But when I went in the 9th grade, I went in the regular classes. But I had been made fun of by other people, other kids in other classes that I went with had been made fun of. But, this is the but, my parents and grandparents were solid and they kept me with a level mind and they kept me straight. Uh, Let me answer this question. It says, do you think lawsuits are the way to go if an agency fails an audit? Depending on what your criteria is for fail an audit. If it's just an officer did an ID, no. If an officer punched you in the chest, yes. If an officer throwed you down on the ground and used excessive force, yes. Uh, if if say 2 or 3 officers are telling you to leave a public space and you're creating no havoc, no harm, you're doing nothing wrong, and they're telling you you can't film and you can't do this, and they're violating your civil liberties, uh, it matters to me that's the last resort. In probably 80% of the cases, 20% the agency did something over the top, and it's about the only way. When Because my parents and grandparents kept me on level ground, I stayed in church. I was involved in civic groups like the Boy Scouts of America, back when it was Boy Scouts of America, when they had Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. And Girl Scouts did their things and Boy Scouts did their own. There wasn't boys trying to join up with the Girl Scouts and vice versa. They had their own. So I thought that was pretty good. But anyway, I grew up in those days, and so forth and so on. I plan on being humble and respectful, but I'm scared to death that one cop is going to go south on me. Any advice? Uh, One cop de-escalate this bad? Well, let me jump to that really quick. I think you need to think about yourself. Use use front mind, back mind, and that means that in your front mind you're dealing with your own safety. Your back mind says, how is the officer perceiving me most likely? Is he seeing me as a friendly Joe? Is he seeing me as bad Leroy Brown? How is he perceiving me? Why are we being contacted? Is he at my front door with a warrant for my arrest? Did he pull me over for an alleged traffic violation? Does he have a warrant he's trying to stop me for? Do I meet the description of somebody that robbed a bank? What exactly is going on? Why is the contact? So is the contact considered neutral, or is it an aggressive, semi-hostile thing from your point of view? So if you put yourself in the place of the officer and say, how does he perceive me? Then you can know how to ratchet it down. Like you can jack up a car. Remember when you used to jack the cars up to change the tires and you'd flip the switch and you'd jack them back down? Well, think of this officer and think that he's on level ground. So you can do things to jack him up, or you can flip the switch and de-escalate. Okay, so you have some power within your ability to de-escalate it, because if he gets loud and forceful, if you lower your voice and say, sir, i'm just I'm worried about my safety, and it sounds like you're talking loud and you're getting a little aggressive, could you talk a little lower, a little slower, and give me a chance to explain what's going on here? Or I'm scared, and uh, I don't have nothing to hide. I don't want to play those games, but I'm going to take the Fifth Amendment and I'm going to invoke counsel. So, so forth and so on. Let's see, notice the principals, notice the agent. That's correct. If you go to the city hall with a speech, a letter to let them know what I expect when pulled over, would that work? It definitely opens up a dialogue. Say if you write a letter to the mayor, and you write into the maybe city manager, and to the chief of police, where they're all three notice that you're domiciled and you dwell within that jurisdiction, and that you expected to be treated like a good citizen unless you act otherwise, and that you want to be treated fairly and honestly by that agency, whether it's an office, department, or agency. An office is like sheriff's office, constable's office, marshal's office. Departments like police department. Then you got these state agencies like the state troopers, fish and game. They're like agencies. So, but yeah, if you wrote that to them and told them, that you're making a responsible, reasonable demand that they respond to you within 10 calendar days, in writing to assure you that you can expect this. Whether they respond or not, you do have your registered paperwork that you sent registered mail or had served on them as a legal notice and demand. So, say if they ever do have interaction with you and it doesn't turn out good, you got evidence to take to court in a lawsuit or a civil rights criminal case to Department of Justice Civil Rights Division to say, listen, I opened up a dialogue with these people and I tried to tell them what I expected, and I even inserted some of the laws according to the law books. So it can help. Let's see. Uh, they had to buy the. Oh yeah, Sergeant Joe Friday says they used to have to buy their own equipment, uniforms, cuffs, service weapons. Yeah, I had to do that too. Matter of fact, I still got a gigantic duty belt over here. By the way, I lost another 10 pounds, but probably got another 100 to go. So says Oleo should be tested for steroids and other drugs. Results should be public record. A perk of being a public servant. I would agree with that. And and uh, a psychological exam, a comprehensive where there's like three different psychological written tests you take. You have an interview with a psychologist or psychiatrist beforehand. So you've gone through things, then you do the written exam. And so they take the first interview, they take the written exam, and the psychologist reviews all of that. Then he has another sit down for a final assessment. And then he has 3 business days after all that to write up a dissertation or whatever you want to call it uh, to the head of the agency or the human resources director that says, based on these here, he scored da 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 on these written psychological exams. My first exam impressions were, my final was, and then it says the synopsis is, I find that this individual man or woman is psychologically fit to carry out the duties of a constitutional peace officer or statutory law enforcement officer uh, pursuant to my training and education. And then they sign it. Or it says, while they basically have the mental capability and there's no red flags, there are some things that say that there's a yellow flag, and there are some things that would cause me to be a little bit hesitant, but I leave it up to the agency. They do pass, but it's by the skin of their teeth. So you said whatever the psychological criteria is by the state, they've met it. But it was minuscule. It was like a score of 70. So they got like a C. And then that's telling the agency. So if they do hire that officer and that psychiatrist or psychologist had put that in there, then that's going to be able to be subpoenaed if that officer goes off and he's a loose cannon. On the other hand, if the officer does go off and the psychologist said, this is an outstanding individual, they show that they're psychologically fit to encounter critical conditions, they can assess situations, etc., and I give them, a clean bill of health, and then they psychologically go off, it doesn't mean that they couldn't have a mental break from the day the psychologist did it. But when they originally hired them, then they can go back if they're sued and say, well, the psychologist gave them a clean bill of health. But I think whether it's every 3 years, every 4 years, it doesn't have to be every year. I mean, that gets pretty burdensome. But if an officer shows physical or mental fatigue or problems, years, whatever, they need, even if they're with the same agency, they need to go be psychologically and physically reassessed because over the undiagnosed PTSD and they're out there making life and death decisions. There's a lot of people that's come home from the military with PTSD and it's called working PTSD, means they have coping skills to deal with it. But if you get in critical life and death situations, you could snap. Anybody could, but they're more likely to, and they're not assessed for this a lot of times. So you have people that's been in war zones for the last 10 or 12 or 15 years, and then they got this 9/11 mentality, and they've been in a war zone, and then you put them in a uniform and they're a civilian setting. So that's a bad situation a lot of times. I've been looking up definitions. Cooperation, that word includes uh, economic element along with partnership. Yeah, I'm gray dude in the house. Hey, gray dude. Uh, should be taken yearly at least. Chief is absolutely astonishing how many of today's Leos have no clue they are public servants and the entire mindset. That's from Russell 3380. Uh, yeah, I mean, just like officers in some states, every 2 years, some's every year, some's every 2 years, some's every 4 years, they have to have mandatory retraining. Well, whatever time period your mandatory retraining is up, then you ought to go for what they call a basic assessment for continued fitness of duty. So you go see a uh, MD. So he does your physical head to toe, and that could be a morning appointment between 8 and 12. Shouldn't take but 30, 45 minutes to go through the basics. And then an afternoon session for about an hour with a psychologist. You don't have to go through all the written exams, but they have access to the original exams you took. And they go back through there and they ask questions and ask you about things. And they pick up on body language, words you do say, things you don't say, inappropriate things you say. And then they can put in there that they feel that you're still continued fit, or that they find that for you to continue being employed, that they're gonna suggest and recommend that you have, some ongoing counseling over the next 3 months in their office, on a weekly or bi-weekly basis for the next 3 months, to make a final determination. And they recommend that you go to desk duty or alternative duty during this period of time, because they think that you may have questionable PTSD or other jokes. No joke. Black coat media. Folks should be evaluated annually or post incident evaluation. On to say, if an officer was in a shootout, okay, just like they had this deal here in Texas. I'm gonna forget the name of the city. It ain't coming to me right off, in Texas, where they had the school shooting recently. All the officers, you can't take an entire police force or sheriff's office off the road all at one time. But I think over the next 30 or 60 days, 90 days, whatever, every officer that was involved in the trauma of the incident where they was in life or death, uh, they should be able to have a basic psychological evaluation. It should only take 30 minutes to 1 hour, and they can run 4 or 5 of those officers through a day per psychologist, and they can hire 3 or 4 psychologists, and they can run probably 12 or 15 through a day. So, they just set you up a thing. You go in, and they say, your green light, yellow light, red light. So that they're offered psychological counseling. And if they tell the psychologist, I feel like I was traumatized during this event and I do believe I need some help, then they can request the agency put you on administrative leave and get some counseling. Because if not, that little tiny molehill is going to grow into a mountain, and they might stop you on a traffic stop and they might go off. And If the agency had taken care of it ahead of time, that wouldn't happen. So we're going to have to get way, way, way more proactive in teaching officers the law, the actual law. We're going to have to physically and mentally evaluate them on a yearly or bi-yearly basis for a clean bill of health, because some have become drug addicts. Some have become alcoholics. I've known of them in the past. Usually, I and other officers were able to tell them they needed to go ahead and resign, go get the help they need, or they could go to HR and they could say, I've become addicted to painkillers or sleeping pills, or I've become an alcoholic and I need help. They actually would put them on administrative leave sometimes for 30 days to start their counseling. And if the counselor said they could go back to full duty, fine. If the counselor said they could go back to alternative duty, like answering phones, reviewing reports, they did that. Okay, we got them to get help. If they didn't, then we would temper management and said, hey, this guy or gal's got a problem, and y'all need to take care of it, because if they go off uh, and they don't back us up and we get shot or hurt, we're coming back to you. Okay, we just told it straight how it was. So it wasn't just me. There was a lot of other officers that did that, and there's still officers out there for inappropriate conduct that violates their departmental policy and procedures and so forth. It's still happening. Uh, in my mind's a little more broad based, and if I see wrong, I'm going to report it. So we're getting a lot more of that to a point. So the will is starting to police, but they're still in a war mentality by and large. But the guys that's been around forever, like me, are still telling these officers, tone it down, tone it down. So the old heads are still talking to the young heads and saying, calm it down, calm it down. And that's why people are calling for a supervisor, like a sergeant lieutenant, to come out there, because 9 out of 10 they're telling them, cut it down. But sometimes there are a sergeant lieutenant that tells that officer's right, and you can clearly see they're wrong. They're backing them up on scene. Now, they may chew their ass out back of the office. They may even write up a report or verbally handle it in house. You don't always see that. But I've actually seen a sergeant or lieutenant go out and back an officer up that was in a very gray area. Then, when he got back to the office, he chewed him out. Now, he'd back him up on the scene, but then he'd go back to the car and say, now listen, you let them people go and let this go. So I backed you up, but now you let them go. And then back at the office, they'd get their butt chewed out, and they'd tell them, listen, you're not on written probation, but you're on I'm watching you probation, and if you screw up, you're gone. And we'll blackball you, and you won't get another job in law enforcement. So let's see what else y'all wrote. Can't seem to get in. Thanks. Tim Ferguson. Hi, NP, he will see it. Russell. Did you watch Avengers Infinity War? I don't know nothing about that. Lurking on YouTube. Clash with bro. Right on. Far out and groovy gravy, baby. Let's see. When cop asks for cooperation, ask them for the mutual benefit that you both have if you cooperate with cops. Black Coat Media, Flippy, is there a sensible way to require that before city council? Yeah, y'all feel free. Y'all conversate back and forth and keep it going. Ask me a question, talk to each other, ask each other's questions. We in the YouTube community here, we are cooperating with each other. I cooperate with y'all, y'all cooperate with me. Cooperation should be a mutual benefit, but police are taught in the academy to use the words cooperate and use the word refuse, because refuse is a powerful negative word. So, you're refusing to cooperate with me? My response is, no, sir. I am declining to do this thing you call cooperate because you are trying to build a case against me. I'm not going to make a hangman's noose and put it around my neck and throw it over the tree and help you lift me up as far as you can to hang me. I'm not going to help you do that. I have no duty nor desire to help you hang me. So I'm not going to do this thing you call cooperate. Cooperate is a code word for help me kill you, metaphorically, not literally. Of course, I guess it could be, but I'm just saying. So I'm going to decline. I'm going to decline your offer for this opportunity. Decline your offer for this opportunity. I will offer you an opportunity to close the dialogue and you depart if you would like to. Because I'd like to go. Okay, here we go. Maybe it's too vague of a question. He hasn't seen it, just seen it. Maybe he doesn't like answering vagueness. Was that for me or somebody else? It's a question, good, better, and different. What is your plan for your son? My son is very similar to yours. You know what? We're trying to get, we, we have land in Texas and have for years. And we have land in Alabama. In fact, we've got, well, we've had three pieces of land in Alabama. Now we got two. In Texas, we got one. But we're disposing of the one in Texas and getting another one. And we're trying to get about 10 to 20 acres of land with us a home or build us a home. And we plan on maybe raising dogs because he's a dog lover. And we had raised some dash hounds, some poodles, and German shepherds in the past. We bred them on a very limited basis to teach him possibly a skill from feeding them, getting them veterinary care, doing their paperwork, yada yada yada. So he's going to probably kind of raise the dogs and then do overnight service or people that's vacationing, then he can take their dogs in. So we'll build a kennel and care facility for dogs. We'll probably do cats too. I mean, uh, I'm not a big cat person. Certain cats I'm allergic to, as in, it'll make my eyes water and nose drain and cause my ears to itch. And so, most cats don't, but there's a few, and I don't know what species, but I've been around some that did that and some didn't. So I'm sure we'll make a way because some cat lovers are crucially passionate about their cats, just like my mother-in-law. Uh, she's about 90 years old, and she has a cat, and she's crazy about that cat, and that's her companion, as my father-in-law passed away. And that cat's kind of old and beat up, but she takes very good care of him. So he's going to do that. We also want to have us a pond or a tank. In Texas, sometimes if it's larger, it's a tank, maybe 1 or 2 acres tank, and maybe breed some fish. And there's a guy at Tifton, Georgia, who raises fish and taught me a lot of things. And he actually can show you how to prepare good natural chemicals to keep your water clean, so you got clean fish to eat. And so he's going to help maintain the pond, and we may let people come over there and fish for a donation. Now, if you're poor, I mean really poor, you're destitute, you need something for recreation, you need some kind of food to eat, then we're going to provide some fishing bait and some poles for needy families to come over and fish for zero. Uh, if they're a needy family and they got children in need, then we're going to donate some puppies to some of these families as well. So it'll be our way of giving back to the community. We believe in giving, what we can. So we're not just takers. we probably give 10 times out what we ever have got in donations, and uh, at least that. So let me look at what y'all are showing here. Uh, let's see here. Uh, uh, says if I missed seeing the question guidelines, I don't even know where to put that up. So, but anyway, I have a few words that I typed in that it's supposed to filter some of that filthy words out. Um, I don't. If you don't attack me or my family personally, if you attack my philosophy, okay, but don't attack me personally. I know I'm fat. I know I'm old. I know I ain't got a mouthful of teeth. I know all that. So if you say that, you're just stating the obvious. So if you say I'm a fat whatever, then I'm probably gonna remove you, okay? Because I don't really like the personal attacks. Now, if I had a lifelong criminal record like somebody we know, well, that's important because when you're out stating that your reputation, your integrity is on the line and giving news and giving useful information and you're a lifelong criminal, that is getting the truth out that's being hidden. Like if I was hiding behind the camera and I would never let nobody see me, and they said this guy's fat as one side of the house, okay, I would kind of get it. But if you attack me or my family, you talk trash, it's unnecessary, uh, not needful, and I got a thick skin, but I don't appreciate it. So you can say what's on your mind if you say, so long as you don't get into hatred and you don't personally attack me and my family. So just don't attack me and my family personally, and just don't can criticize me, but try and make it constructive, not like a hit and run, like we just whack him and run. Don't be a coward. Don't be a coward. Uh, in fact, I don't remember what year it was, but it was to probably the mid 90s or late 90s that the Florida State Highway Patrol had removal from office for a state trooper acts of cowardice. So if a trooper was called to the scene and they did not engage, like say that school shooting they had down in Florida, if a trooper was there and didn't go into the building and go after the shooter actively, they would have been removed from office for an act of cowardice. They could have never been a police officer again. I thought that made good sense. I thought that was understood. If you was a police officer, you didn't hide out. You actually went down and tracked down the shooter. Now, you have a right to self defense and you got a right to try and find some cover because if you get killed, you can't, if you're dead, you can't go after the perpetrator. So you got to protect yourself for yourself and your family. But if you're an actual coward, and a lot of agencies all through the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and a lot in the 80s had acts of cowardice. You were removed from office. Period. Let's see what else y'all say. Gonna try one more time. Loved the last judge video. Is there no such thing as a bad Washington? I don't even know. Do you think some auditors are trying to bait the police for money? That's very possible. I'm not a mind reader. Now, some people thought Patrick was baiting police. Now, he used a lot of unorthodox tactics and strategies. And me and him talked at length, probably a couple uncertain. Not that you don't have a right to do it, but some of them get uncertain. Who is this guy and why is he in here filming us? So they just feel uneasy. So he wasn't baiting, he was seeing how the police would respond to lawful activity, but being silent sometimes, and seeing how far would they go, see what they would do. Or sometimes, you can call me good citizen, or you can call me sir. So it was just Mexican Padilla. Woo! I love that cat, Mexican Padilla. Ha ha! He, yeah, he don't take no crap off nobody. He just mind his business. Love it. Yeah, brother, right on. Far out and groovy gravy. I I really, me too, Chief. Russell, 3380. Woo! All of y'all. Hey! Okay. I'm like my own reality TV show, kind of, but not really. Sort of. What's up, MP? Thanks, everyone. Yeah, Mexican Padilla, he's going through the drive-through, going ching ching. Man, let me tell you what, them police played some hard games with Mexican Padilla, jammed him up. I mean, I seen on one of the videos where they had to get a supervisor just about to peel one of them officers off of him. I, I was just like, doggone. I remember being called the scene where I had some officers that I didn't hire them, I didn't want them. Policy was slowing me down from terminating them, but I had to go out on the scene and just about peel them off of people out on I-10. I had two bad officers that were bad about traffic stops and bad about escalating stuff, especially one of them. He had been in the Marines and he had not adjusted to civilian life too well, and they didn't do a good background check when they hired him. And he had actually been fired from about 5 different agencies for similar things. He was a gypsy cop. He didn't quit, retire, nothing. He just got fired, 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 fired. And he had instincts that were incredible. And he found he could find more dope on more people than anybody I ever known in my life. And he found more cash seizures, and these were legitimate cash seizures. I'm talking anywhere from 40,000 to 160,000. He just instinctively had an extra sense to know this stuff. So the city loved that. I said, y'all ain't gonna love it when he gets us sued for several $1,000,000, or he winds up killing somebody, and we're on the TV news from coast to coast. This is a serious problem child. Now, believe it or not, he outlived me at that same department. I retired, and even when I got to be chief, which for a short time before I actually retired there, because me and the city manager just couldn't see eye to eye. He thought we was a dang revenue machine with tickets, and this guy wrote a lot of tickets and did these cash seizures. So the city manager loved him, and no matter what I wrote or what I did, and I said, well, you know what? You're going to be the one, Mr. City Manager, that gets caught in this vicarious liability because I've wrote to you over and over, and I got a chain letter like this here, time and time again, how bad this guy is, how he didn't answer calls, or how he didn't follow departmental policy, how he's got in a gray area of violation of state laws and so forth. Well, he brings in a lot of money, and I said, you don't get it. Our job is not to bring in money. Our job is to keep the peace and tranquility in the community, to keep orderly flow. We, as the very last thing on our list, do traffic enforcement. That's the very lowest thing on our priority list. The highest priority is to patrol the neighborhoods, patrol the businesses. We go out and shake hands with business owners, their employees. We stop by and make contact with citizens. We know a lot of these people on a first name basis. That's our first job, to save human life and property. Human life being one, of course. To talk to people, make friends with people in the community. So when we ask them about cooperating with us, they know we're not trying to jam them up. The last thing we do is traffic control. That's when we have time. If we're not investigating something, we're not working on a case, that's when we do that. You see? And he was upside down, but even when I was chief, I did everything I could. I put him on suspension, everything else. So sometimes you got a chief of police or a sheriff or a constable that really, 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 really wants to fire somebody so bad they can taste it, but their policies or procedures or HR or something, there's a hang up somewhere, a hangnail, and it takes time. Now, it wasn't too long after I was gone they fired him. It's the next guy that come in that was the temporary interim chief of police. He got a good enough file together and a good enough set of facts along with everything else I had done to line up a long pattern and basically get him suspended. Then he went back and did all the stuff about the background and got people on the record and eventually got him fired. You know, so I did everything I could, but calling a supervisor out, 9 out of 10 will de-escalate things greatly, but at least enough where you can breathe and you can feel like, hey, there's somebody that's been around a little while longer and is actually they've actually decided can have help control things. Let's see. Hi, Greg. Well, amen. We got some initials. Just got on. Greg B. Brittany Maloney. Thank you for harassment charges against police will stick. Let's see. You should mail for me today. Okay, what's up, MP? Let's see. Kelly Odell, I have a good friend who was chief of police, also a good man. By the book, he's been known to bring the poor food and kids' bikes. That's fantastic. Yeah, when we used to have Lost and Found, uh, I used to advertise locally that we found these bikes. You could tell us the description and blah blah blah, and if it's your bike, you got it. After 30 days, then we gave notice that we would be giving them away to needy children. So I've hauled a lot of bicycles that were lost and found after nobody claimed them after 30 days, which are usually drug dealer bicycles for lookouts. I'd take the bikes, would engrave them uh, with the mom or daddy's driver's license number or the child's name and some number they wanted on there where they could identify it, and would put it in a visible place and would put it in a highly unlikely place where we would know where it was, and would give the bikes to them for the kids. Let's see. I've been here. Did you think 1033 program is part of the incentive aiding as well as asset forfeitures? What are your thoughts about that? These, for example, if you're a small department and you're struggling for funds, you're a small constable's office or a small sheriff's office, a lot of times it gets abused, especially when you have these hot dog, hot rod officers that say they've got 6 months to less than 3 years in, and they kind of get a feel for people that they think they're profiling, but it's not a racial profile, but it is a profile of sorts. So basically, what it's doing is it's given what could be all good officers an incentive that they're going to look good to their sergeants and chiefs of police or sheriffs or marshals, and they'll make a $10,000 seizure. Well, for example, a guy was a dentist and he had $10,000, and he was traveling to Florida. And one of my guys seized the money. and seized the car because I forget exactly what it was, how he put it, but he seized the car like a Mercedes Benz. Put the guy on the side of the interstate. On the side of the interstate, had his car towed. This guy had a cell phone and called the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office called me. I come out from my house at 10 or 11 o'clock at night in my patrol car, come out there. I gave the man a ride to Tallahassee where he could run a car and do stuff. And he told me about what happened, and I said, I don't agree. Well, anyway, I made sure the man got his 10,000 back and got his car back. He was a dentist. And he said, look, man, he said, I made over $250,000 last year. If I can't carry $10,000 around with me and my family going to South Florida, so it wasn't just him, it's actually a family, his wife and a couple of daughters, if I remember right. Might have been a son and daughter. Anyway, they were younger and they were going to go to Disneyland and this, that, and the other, so he had cash. Well, if you can't carry $10,000 cash with you and you're a dentist or a doctor or a lawyer, or you're just me and I've saved up the money, or somebody else has saved up the money, they ought to be able to carry it around with them. But the police a lot of times will seize it and say, unless you can prove, see, it ain't like innocent to guilty. If you can't prove how you got this money, we're going to keep it. And if you want to try and prove it, we're going to bring in the IRS, so it scares people away. Oh, the IRS will audit you. And then departments usually, if they think you could viably prove it, then they'll say, here's what we'll do. If you'll sign a release, we'll give 50% back to you. So they get to keep the 5 or 10 or 20,000, whatever's half, and do away with it. So they just hired a new officer, or they just bought a new patrol car. So it's misused. In fact, I had a friend that took my video, and I know for a fact President Trump saw the part where I was talking about asset forfeitures were being greatly abused. And the National Sheriff's Association, when they met with him and chiefs of police, they told him, we need stronger asset forfeitures. Well, in certain limited areas, yes. But on all these traffic stops, and you get somebody that's got $5,000 or $10,000 or 20,000, people haul that kind of money around all the time. That's got all kinds of jobs, because I know a man that had $119,000 in a sack. Of course, he had been saving money his entire life. Some of the money was 20 or 30 years old, because you could see on the dates they were printed. Old $100 bills and old $50 bills, they were all legal and they run through the bank. But had that man been stopped on the way to the bank, how's he going to prove for 30 years or 40 years he saved this $120,000 cash? But he bought this man's house with that, okay? And a lot of people locally knew that. But what if he went through some jurisdiction where they didn't know this man was known to deal in cash only? Because he had been trained that way from the Great Depression. He was about 96, 97 years old, okay? You see what I'm saying? So it's misapplied all the time. Drugs are taking over my small town, big problem. Yes, yes, they are. I heard Tennessee's going insane with asset forfeiture. Yeah, Tennessee's pretty bad about it. Tennessee's had a lot of problems with the state highway patrol, in fact, but they've been having problems with the state highway patrol for the last 20 or 30 years. That's been on the news many times. Let's see, our kids are dying left and right. Wonder who's making all that money. Well, the drug manufacturers and the big wheeler dealers are making lots of it. But I ain't casting no aspersions, but especially in bigger cities, there's cops a lot of time, and they've been arrested. It's been on the news, so this is nothing new. But sometimes these cops get paid off for what they call area protection. So you may have, 4 or 5 officers and a few sergeants, and maybe they work on Wednesday through Sunday shift, and maybe they work 3 to 11. So this group of 5 or 6 or 7 guys might tell some of the drug dealers in that area, hey, we ain't going to see you, and we ain't going to da-da-da-da, but it's going to cost $5,000 a week for us to look the other way, or $10,000 or whatever it is. And these drug dealers sometimes are moving $100,000 a day, so they don't care. 5 or 10 or 20,000. So you got some of these cops on the take. Uh, our government is the biggest drug dealer on the planet. Yeah, if you only knew what the CIA does, it would blow your mind. Now, the CIA likes to do a lot of black projects, off the book projects. Yeah, Chicago is out of control. I honestly think pharmaceutical companies are criminals. Yeah. When you have drugs that can save somebody's life or prolong it even for a few more months to be with their family and friends and can keep their misery down, and you make it beyond their financial reach, I think it's criminal. I mean, I don't say they have to do it for free, but if you got a drug that's been being $20 a month and all of a sudden it's 4,000 a month, who has $4,000 to pay for a drug? Especially if they're on minimum wage or whatever. One guy says, "Bingo." Yeah. The truth be told, their immorality and sin, they must repent. Kelly says, "Yeah." I got another call. I'm going to dismiss it. People want to call while I'm doing live performance. Let's see. Uh, Kelly Odell, I'm a preacher. Preach it! Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, Batman. Okay. Uh, Gosh. Yeah, I don't agree with a lot of the forfeiture or seizure laws where you stop a guy because he had a tag light out or he supposedly weaved in his lane or didn't turn on a signal, and then you escalate that somehow into I smelled alcohol or cannabis and I'm tearing your car apart with another deputy or another police officer on the side of the road or interstate, and we've taken the seats out, then all of a sudden we find you got $10,000, so we're impounding your car and your money and putting you on the side of the road, and good luck getting it back. That's bullcrap, and it happens every day. Georgia used to be really bad about it. I don't know about now. Georgia was bad about it. Mississippi, Tennessee was bad about it. Texas, it depends on where you're at in Texas. You know, it's a gigantic state. Let's see. Black label cop, what are you a chief? I'm a retired chief of police, and I'm a retired chief deputy constable. So that's how I got the title chief. Plus, when I was a kid, because I have some Native American ancestry, you know, not a lot, but a little, they used to call me chief. And a lot of people in the projects and low income areas, they used to have habits of calling people captain or sergeant or chief, and they used to just call me chief even when I was a patrolman and a sergeant and stuff like that. People called me chief. And then when I became a chief, I was chief. So I retired from two different chiefs of police positions, retired, and now retired as chief deputy constable. So that's how I got chief. I still have a commission, but it's a retired commission. So actually, there's two different cities. Well, I think the way it's worded, I think there's one department that could call me out of retirement, one police department, and a constable's office that could call me out of retirement. And the constable's office is the strictest one because the wording of the retirement says they can call me out at any time and reinstate my commission. Let's see, FHP, where did that go? Da-da-da-da-da. FHP had dozens of patrol cars thanks to drug dealers. Yeah, that's a fact. Uh, that's when you go out in public to shake hands. Yeah, I. Good thing I didn't have no phobia about shaking hands because I have even on traffic stops numerous times shook hands with people, and of course I was brainwashed and strategically taught and trained how to deal with a traffic stop, how to de-escalate the man or woman's if they were alarmed, they were scared. I had lots of ladies that were crying. Some of them, I think they were crying because they said, if you cry, I'll get out of the ticket. I said, well, if you're crying, it's probably just going to speed me up, so I'll be able to. The more you cry, the faster I can write the ticket. Well, that was the wrong thing to say, and I'm sorry, and I repented from that. Okay, but that was some of my brainwashing, what I call it, because I shouldn't have handled it like that, and I was wrong to do that, and I admit it. You know, uh, but then a lot of times that would get their attention, so it was wrong for me to do it. But then they would say, "What do you mean you're going to write it faster?" And I said, "Well, I don't believe you're genuinely crying, so you're kind of ramping me up, getting all emotional on me." And it's kind of put me on overload, so I'm going to speed up the ticket. So in a way, I was being truthful, but in a way, I was being kind of aggressive. And someone would say, "Well, and then someone would say, "Look, I can't help it," and I would see the countenance in their face change, and I'd say, I take it back. I'm sorry, and I've done that many times. And then some of them had talked about, I got a boyfriend or fiance or husband, and they would talk about that they were abusive, and if I could get a ticket, they're going to whoop my ass. They would say stuff like that. Okay. And some of them I literally believed, and I said, you know what? I'm going to avoid this ticket out. I believe you. But at the exact same time, I'm going to give you a local counselor's name that's free. It ain't going to cost you nothing. And an advocate's name for women or men, but there's a separate program for men because it's only 10% of the men, usually 90% women, that are abused. But this is a woman's shelter. Here's the phone number, here's the address for check in. They're actually at another location that's undisclosed. Only us people that's in law enforcement and first responders know where this is at. Let's see. Chief, during a traffic stop is a passenger required ID by law. I'm going to say in general, no. In general, no. Now, there may be articulable reasonable suspicions why you'd have to, but just, well, we don't know if you're wanted, we don't know if you got any warrants, that ain't going to hold water. If I'm on a traffic stop and I say, what's your ID, ma'am or sir? And they say, you know, I don't have no articulable reasonable suspicion to ID that other person. Just because I'm going to so called check and see if they got warrants, well, that'd be like stopping anybody down the street. Hey, stop, I want to check you and see if you got warrants. How stupid is that? Okay? But police are trained at the academy to try and identify everybody in the quote vehicle. Okay, you got vehicles and you got automobiles, and they're different, and I talked about that a lot of times. There's very specific legal differences. Now, I'm not an attorney, and this ain't legal advice, and it's absent all that. I'm just talking to you as a retired chief of police and 40 years studying the law and the way judges, lawyers, prosecutors have explained the law to me. I'm trying to reiterate that to the public for general education and as part of my ministry with the Sovereign Church of Jesus. Let's see. Let's see here. God bless you. Right on, brother. Our cops last year pulled people over and gave them Walmart gift cards. That's a good idea. Look, I actually have some retired and active police officers, active and retired military, that watch my videos. They might even be on here live. I don't see nobody right this minute, but sometimes they've been on here live. Sometimes they watch the videos when they get off, or they're on the night shift and they watch some of my videos at nighttime. Some comment, but most don't, and some are under, assumed names because they don't want the people in their department or agency to know. I know who they are, and they call me privately and talk to me on the phone, and I know some of them I have thoroughly, thoroughly pissed off. And they're friends of mine, and I have really pissed them off because some of them have said, well, you're kind of giving away some trade secrets. Well, law enforcement shouldn't really have trade secrets. or you're giving away some of our strategies, or your compromises on traffic stops. And I say, well, tell me exactly what I said. Well, just in general. And I said, no, I want you to be specific. If you're going to make a claim against me to me, I appreciate you manning up or being a woman. There's a few women too, mainly men, 90% or more, but I love all the men and women out there. So, but I'm saying they call me and I say, you're putting into my ear a claim against me. So if you're going to make a claim against me to me, I appreciate you for manning up or womaning up, okay? But be specific. Tell me what I said or what I did. Well, and I said, don't crawfish now. You called me up to complain, and I'm listening. If I feel like I said something on a video that would cause you any harm, I'll remove it. I take it down. It's not a problem. But maybe somebody else that's mirrored it or copied it and shared it on the internet. I found some of my videos that I didn't authorize to be mirrored that are mirrored other places. Okay? I'm not trying to chase them down and do nothing about it. Uh, you know, it's just not that big a deal to me. At least at this point in time. It may be some other time in the future. Depends on how they use them. If they're putting the whole video out there and it's truthful, and in other words, they're not adding or taking away or changing it, it's not a real big deal to me. Okay. Now, if somebody tries to put it on YouTube and monetize off of me, or try and do me wrong in some way, yeah, I'm sure I would probably, because I'm the kind of guy I am, I'd probably send them an email and try and call them and talk to them and say, hey, what can we do to fix this? I try and go man to man or man to woman, whatever, and deal with it in a righteous way. But sometimes you just can't reason with people, or they won't respond to you, and then you just gotta go on and take the legal action you need to take, or contact the internet service provider or whoever it is you need to contact, and give them notice and or go to a lawsuit, whatever you think's proper. I take care of over 90% of all my own paperwork for everything. I got other friends that are legal and biblical scholars that sometimes will throw in up to 10% additional information to help me out. Or I get into some really, really unique cases, and sometimes they're knotted up. And I usually, after a few days, can figure out which way to go. In fact, I've been helping one man for about 15 months now, trying to untangle a lot of things and get things done for 15 months. I learned some things as well as taught some things, because he had done some very diligent studies and gave me some case laws, so that just added to more knowledge for me that I can share with y'all. I've got another guy I've been helping out for about 6 or 8 months, and he's done his own research, and of course that adds to me. Uh, let's see. Let me make sure. We have Goose Day here in PA. On Goose Day, local PDs pull over and take them to the Goose Dinner. Well, that's good. Regarding a traffic stop, is anything required to make a traffic stop from parked motor off to actual driving, etc.? I'm not sure. Looks like IAY. I'm not sure, but I think you're asking if you're in a parked motor vehicle and it's turned off, can there be a traffic stop? I don't see how there could be. I think that's impossible. Uh, I'm trying to think and run through my mind any possibility. Let's just say you're sitting in the car and you're on a public street, the common way, and say maybe they saw that your tag was expired, and maybe the police pulled behind you and you're parked on a street and turned on the lights and come out and said your tag's no good and you're on a public street. That might apply. Depends on what the law says in that particular state. And remember, we got 50 states. Now, probably 80% of the laws in all 50 states are so similar there's not a nickel's difference in them. 20% are just crazy. I mean, they got some laws in some places in Kansas as well as other places that says a woman cannot sit on a bar stool at the bar. In Sneads, Florida, unless they repealed the ordinance, you used to have somebody, I think it was 20 feet ahead of your car. They had to have a lantern and go, in the evenings and mornings, and I don't know if there was other times, but they had to sling this thing here, and when they got to an intersection, they had to pull a trigger on a shotgun, if I remember the ordinance correctly. If I got it wrong, so what? You got the gist of the idea. If you're in your car parked in a parking lot on the side of the road, they need reasonable articulable suspicions to stop, but it might not be for traffic reasons. Real Jingy, yeah. I mean, in other words, say if somebody gave a description of you or of somebody else that was similar to you and they saw you in, they might be getting you because somebody was mugged, raped, or whatever, and you fit the description, so it might not be a traffic stop. You assume it is, but it might not be. Or it might be. And it might be justified or unjustified. Just because a police officer pulls you over does not mean it's a justified traffic stop. Uh, Great info. Thanks, Chief. Yes. There was plenty of dead dogs near the intersection where the shotguns were used, huh? Ha 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 ha. That's funny. Nope. Sneeds, I think they're about 3,000, 4,000 people. I can't really remember now. But it probably had 2 or 3 kind of main intersections, and this is back in the, I guess, 1920s or something, and you probably only had maybe a dozen people or so around with an automobile. So they were people didn't have no training. They just bought a car and they just traveled in their private automobile how they wanted to. See, the bullets that go up come down. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they, if you wasn't good, they might have hit you. Hi everyone, can you share your work with all links provided? We do not monetize. Share your work. Uh, Send me an email to Daymond, Daymond, Daymond4040 at yahoo.com so I can talk to you about it. I'd rather not talk on here. I'd rather talk in person. You can email me and give me a number and I can call you and we can talk about it. I don't mind that. Let's see. Shotgun in the air isn't so bad. Yeah, I guess. Let's see. Yeah, but then there's the intent to drive it. Well, see, there's the common law, and the common law is not a precision law. The common law is the way that people in the area commonly think about things and commonly have a custom and usage in their area. Okay? Like in some places, when you drive, if you don't wave, they think you're a snob and a jerk. Other places you wave, they think you're cuckoo. So the custom and usage in one place is different than the next. Okay? So, uh, in some places, seeing people with pistols on their side or revolvers, you more likely not. I mean, if you saw somebody that didn't have one, that would be unusual versus the other way around. Let's see. Shotgun in your hands is better. Yes, sir. No problem, sir. Thank you. Thanks, Dick and Roscoe Show. Real Jingy, hey, good to see you here. Let's see. I guess that was for another viewer or whatever. I'm still here answering questions. I'm going to try and hang in with you as long as I can. See, the investigation that is proving Hillary's in trouble. Besides Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton is one of the most dirtiest, low down, crooked politicians I've ever known. And I've said on my channel before here, I knew state troopers that were really, really good cops in Arkansas, either at conventions in Dallas or other places. Uh, I'd come in contact with these officers, and this is back when he was governor. And some of the things that some of them told me and some officers in Dallas would make your hair stand up on your neck. They were creepy, they were freaky. Uh, Bill Clinton, in fact, at one time told one of them, said, you know, and of course he's actually now come out and done a video on it. I'd seen it probably 6 months ago. I don't know if he done it 6 months ago or he did it 5 years ago. I don't know, but this is something he had actually told us at one time. He said, Bill Clinton said, you know, not only are you going to have to go find these women and tell these women I want to see them and escort them back, but you may have to kill somebody to protect me. And don't never forget that. So he's saying, you know, you're going to be my pimp and my bodyguard. And some of the Secret Service detail, some of the things they do ain't so secret. And one of the specific agents used to deal with Hillary Clinton and Janet Reno and Nancy Pelosi and some of the things that they had going on up at Camp David. And that would make your hair stand up on your neck. And Henry Kissinger, people don't talk about him, but some of the exploits that he was in, oh my God. Let me tell you. Ask cop questions that stymie them into backing off. Okay. Uh, I had a false felony charge dropped by the DA. Was it dropped for, quote, lack of evidence, verifiable evidence? They decided it was a bad charge. Why was it dropped? If you care to share. If you don't, it's okay. Chief, there needs to be a Leavenworth. Yeah. I uh, I got in serious trouble in a roundabout way by a pack of people who all wore badges because I was trying to propose a law in Florida through my state rep that said if you was an active duty police officer, full-time, part-time, reserve, auxiliary, and you committed a crime, whatever the crime was, if it was a misdemeanor, it went up to the next grade. So if it was like a second degree misdemeanor, it would become a first degree misdemeanor. If it was a third degree felony, it become a second degree felony. And or whatever the fine and the jail time was for the average citizen, it would be double for a peace officer or law enforcement officer. So say if you had a guideline that said you could go to prison for 2 to 5 years, it would be from 4 to 8 years. So everything would double up. And whatever the minimum mandatory was for another citizen, it would be double that. So if you had 3 years mandatory, if you was a cop and did the same thing, you had 6 years mandatory. And the PBA, boy, they made a frantic phone call to me and they said, well, listen, you're a chief of police and you're pushing this, so it's got some weight behind it. We want you to lay off. And I said, you ain't got no business calling me. I said, I'm a member of y'all. And I've been a member of PBA because sometimes police are good people like me and get jammed up. Okay? I'm not using you for contracting. I'm using you so if I get accused of things, I got somebody to protect me because there's people out there that do file lawsuits. I never had one filed against me, but in the event that I did, I needed somebody in my corner. But I told them I'm not backing off. And I had a lot of other cops that say this is bad. Well, I was told it died in committee because the powerful unions and stuff in Florida called in and said no, 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 no. And if they'd had their way, they probably would have run me out of town on a rail. But I said, cops shouldn't be committing crimes. If they're supposed to be the enforcers of the law, then they know better than anybody, and they know what the penalties are and the consequences. So if they do it, they should get double the fine and double the time and never be a cop ever again because something's wrong. See, congrats to your son. Thank you for Brother James. Know the statutes they have to follow, identify the policy or law they're trying to enforce. I believe that. I totally believe that. Since the chief has a son who can sing. Yeah, he can sing. He can preach a sermon. He one of his sermons is preaching on morality and ethics, and for people to obey their parents, and for their parents to steward their children correctly. He don't know the Bible cover to cover, but he knows lots of different sections and all the Bible heroes and basic things in the King James Version of the Bible. And, you know, I used to tell God, I'm ashamed, I'm ashamed, I'm ashamed because I know man's law better than your law. And I said that for a long time, and one time God woke me up somewhere around 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and said, quit telling me that. He said, your mind is different. Okay, you was a slow learner and an alternative learner. You could learn man's law, and you had people that were trained to teach you man's law, and you learned it. Once you learned it, all the principles are exactly the same in mine because man's law come out of my law. But man's law fell away from my law and said where it was parallel with my law, it began to veer off until it's real far out. And my law is common law, and common law is nature. I created nature. Nature is law. Law is nature. And I'm straight up and down. And man's law, the Constitution of each individual state and of the United States of America, organic, was parallel. But it slowly began to go away and become statutes, policies, administrative laws, and it didn't follow the common law. It was exact, like an engineer was making a specific law for one fits all. And God says it's not the same. He said a peach tree grows different than an apple tree. There's principles, but it's a different seed. And said, you have small, medium, large. You have extra large, extra small, wide, narrow. He said each person should be judged on the merits of their individual thing. And God says, now you can apply the principles of this to my law. And once he opened up my mind really, really, really good about 4.5 years ago, my mind just exploded like a gigantic light bulb went off. And I said, I see how you created a covenant with us, and then we turned out and created a covenant with the government. And a covenant is not a contract. It has no ending date. So we have a covenant with you, and they have a covenant with us. We owe our existence to you, our creator. Government owes their existence to us, their creator. Okay? And we have things by birthright in the United States, just like in the Bible, birthrights. We have birthrights. That's why I am not a U.S. citizen. I am an American citizen, and there is a legal distinction between those two. And I don't live in state of Texas, state of Alabama, state of Florida. I don't live in state of. I live in the Alabama State Republic. I live in the Texas State Republic. I live in the Florida State Republic. Do you remember colleges used to say, like, Texas State College? And they had things, Texas state law, Alabama state law, Florida state law. I got to plug in here. Hang on, y'all. I got to plug in my charger here. I've been down, burning that charger down. Let's see. Where? Let's see. 10 Commandments. Any of them? Let's see. If you break the 10 Commandments, any one of them, you go. Let's see. Any one of them, you go to the courthouse. Why are they not there? I've seen lots of courthouses that have the 10 Commandments posted on the judge's bench or behind their chair or to the door to their court or in their judge's chambers. Most do not. I've also seen lots of judges with a United States flag and a state flag on a pole. And the way it is arranged in the gold fringe uh, says it's the presidential military flag. So you know that. Then I've seen the flags going from top to bottom, just like you see in the House of Representatives, and the flags are on the wall, attached to the wall from the top to the bottom, turned the correct way. And I have seen I've seen a lot of places in Texas that the Texas State Republic flag, which is the proper pronunciation, Texas State Republic flag, flown or hung correctly according to the flag laws and flag codes, and it makes it a common law court because the flag is flown the correct way. It's not on a pole, it's not gold fringed. And people says, "Oh, you're getting into idiotic stuff." No, I'm not. Let me fix this here. Uh, when you understand flag code and what flag things mean, uh, it makes a big difference. Used to be, and I don't know now, but there used to be, I get them mixed up, but at the base of the flag, there was either a semi-automatic, or one round. I forget what it was. And at the top, if you climbed the top of the flagpole and unscrewed the ball at the top, then there was the semi-automatic pistol or one bullet, and it was on every military base. And unless they've changed the law, it's still that way. And that was so that a soldier could get a pistol and one round to defend the flag. So he was going to put his life in jeopardy to defend the flag. Now, me personally, I don't say Pledge of Allegiance because it said I pledge allegiance to the nation. My allegiance is pledged to God, which is Jesus in the flesh in my belief system. Okay? So my pledge, you can't pledge allegiance to Satan and to God. I'm not saying America's Satan, I'm just saying you can't have a divided loyalty. So my allegiance, I pledge my allegiance to God Almighty, Jesus. Now, I have what I would call a lesser commitment, not allegiance, but a lesser commitment to my city, county, state, and nation to defend my family, my friends, and my fellow countrymen. So, will I take up arms to defend our homeland? You bet your bottom dollar I will. Okay, but that's self-defense for me, my family, my friends, my state, and my nation. So, yeah, I will do that. In fact, I'm part of a militia, and I'm aligned with other militias that do first response, civil defense, but also military response to back up the military or defend their cities and their counties should we be attacked by domestic and foreign enemies. Let's see, Leo's, I'm doing investigation on questioning someone. Yep, they say that a lot. Law enforcement was taught excuse based logic. They were taught how to take cameras away from people. They were taught how to extract a driver's license or ID and how to give this, "I'm in fear of my life. I thought and I believed I was doing the right thing. They were taught all the good faith, color of law protections. Uh, no, you can't leave. I'm conducting an investigation. Investigation of what? So when you question them of what, why, reasonable articulable suspicion, they start, I think this, and this starts crawfishing because they didn't have a legitimate, reasonable articulable suspicion to detain you. And when you say, can I go over here 75 foot, and they say no, you say, well, then I consider myself under arrest and I'm going to exercise the Fifth Amendment. Now, I don't practice what I preach sometimes, and that's because I can't teach you everything in my mind. So I try and teach you the safest, most reasonable thing I can from a police officer's perspective, okay? Uh, I was taught wrong, but the older heads was correcting me and saying, no, that's not the way it really works. And a lot of them said, forget that stuff you learned in the academy. Said, yeah, you got to know some of the laws and you had to physically be fit, yada, yada, yada. But said, a lot of this stuff that they taught you is progressive, it's aggressive, it's going to get you or me shot or killed. Tone it down and learn. You're a young buck and you just want to run around and chase all the cattle down and mate with them, theoretically. Said, we walk down real slow and get them all one at a time. In fact, that was one of Robert Duvall's lines in Colors with Sean Penn when he was the young buck. So I'd gone through that being the young buck and the old heads telling you how to calm it down. And like everybody owed Robert Duvall one, everybody owes him one. Well, I was that kind of cop. Everybody owed me one. You know, they say everybody owes Chief one. But that was good because if I was trying to solve a homicide or a rape case or a home invasion or carjacking, I could pick up the phone, I could tootle around in the hood and say, yo, 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 I need a little something. Chief, you know I can't be talking to you in the streets, but if you go back to your office, hey, I'll give you a little ring of jingle, okay? All right, I go to the office. Hey, this is dusty and rusty down here, and here's the talk on the street, and here's what's going on. Okay, good, so I would go with that. You know, let's see. Uh, that is how this man talks when he love it. Q&A just babbling on. Well, uh, hey, let's see, who said I was babbling on? Let's see, who was that? Uh, mm, oh, Short Trevor says I was just babbling on. Cool. See, I wouldn't remove that. You said I'm babbling on. Free speech. I love that. Free thought. You're a free thinker. You're a free speaker. Free speech. I love it. I can say, hey, I don't like that comment. Things you can do to help you, so I don't consider that babbling. But I support your right to say I am. That's what we do over here on my channel. Okay, so long as you don't attack me, and that's my philosophy and that's my style. So that's not a direct attack on me. I don't perceive it that way. You're good with me. We could have coffee. You know, uh, I don't really. I guess I got a little ego when I first started out as a cop. It was like that. Then the old head started trimming it down, and they said, "Hey, you can't ride in the car with us unless you trim it down some more." And it got like this here. And then I made some serious mistakes, what I called serious. They said, well, it really ain't nothing. But I felt so bad that I'd come off wrong. Boy, it got pretty narrow, and it's got more and more narrow. So if you take the ego out of it and you don't care who gets credit, things go much, much faster and much, much better. In fact, a lot of times I had done things that officers helped me with. I'd done most of the work. When the newspaper showed up and said what happened, I say, well, officer so and so and so and so affected a narcotics arrest on so and so, and I was on scene and witnessed that they did an excellent job. So they'd go in the thing and say coffee, yeah. So they would put their name in the paper and they'd say that the chief was on scene and so they did an excellent job. So what did my officers do? Chief, you know, you handled most of that and you gave us the credit. I said, well, it looks good on you, so your fellow officers will say y'all did a good job. That's something you can cut out and put in your scrapbook. That's something the city manager, city council will see, and it got your name in the paper in a positive way. So I've already paid my dues. I've already been on the TV. I've already been on the radio news. I've been on so many things so many times where I got the credit. I, I'm full up of credit. I don't need nothing. You know, I done been there, done it. It's your time to shine. Because when people like me retire, I'm counting on you guys to carry on my teachings, to carry on my philosophy. Treat people like family unless they won't allow you to. Now, you don't need to be so trusting you wind up getting shot between the damn eyes. Don't do that. But, let's see. Please try addressing the question. Damon with the questions, please. So you have the. Yeah, just answer me. I'm going to try and monitor this for just a minute. So if you got a specific question, I'll try and answer it fast as I can. But I got one of them minds that if some people could tell you in a sentence, maybe two, I got to tell you in a couple paragraphs or three because I feel like I'm cheating you if I don't give you the whole mindset and I just give you a piece of it. It might cause you to get hurt or something. Let's see. I'm in there. Separation of church and state was meant to keep a state from passing a law that inhibits freedom of religion by specifically targeting a religion belief. Uh, you got LATRH. Church is a body. It's a body of people. We, the people, are part of the church. So the church can be all up in state business, all they want to be. All they want to be because they're part of we the people. So they're just another body. So you got this body over here and this body over here. They can all redress and go. So the people, the church, can be in the state's business, but the state cannot be in the church's business. It's a one-way street. And people say, "Wow, I never thought of that." Yeah, I've talked to a lot of legal scholars, and they said actually that's the way the government was set up. And Tom running the government. They were their servants. They were their field hands. They were their butlers and maids taking care of their business. So we're all the boss, but you can't have millions of people running around being the boss. So you select a representative by casting a ballot and said this man or woman, they're going to carry our 200 or 400,000 people. They're going to carry our people, they're going to carry their voice. So their constituents are going to write in, call them, text them, whatever, and they're going to sway that person to carry the majority of that area's belief, so long as it's not repugnant to the state national constitution. Uh, uh, who's this says later hater? What does that even mean, later hater? I don't even know what that means. Chief, the question was prefaced with Ask Chief if you could see then easy, just a thought. Okay, just pointing out the facts. Do you say a prayer to the flag or the state or to the church, or do you say a prayer to the higher power? Well, God I believe in one God, the Father, Son, the Holy Ghost. These three are one. That's what I believe. You don't have to. That's what I believe. And I pledge allegiance to that God every day of my life. Now, when we have church services, we don't have a flag per se. I do have a Christian flag, and the Christian flag flown on a pole, just on any metal or wooden pole, or posted on the wall like in a common law sense, is fine and dandy. Now that represents the Lord, kind of like his sword or his shield, or uh, it just says it represents me. You know, people have logos, and I don't want to call the Christian flag a logo, but a logo is a brand or a marking or an understanding. I'm going to try and go these questions one at a time. If anybody else got a question, I'm ready. I'm looking over here. Okay, no question. Ding, ding, ding. I'm going to try and get these questions as they come out one at a time. Okay. Was the killing of President Kennedy an inside job? I believe it was. Personally, I think I've got evidence to support that. And I've talked about that on my past videos. Later Hater is my handle. Sorry, just wanted to clarify because I have a concern one day. Oh, well, thank you. More power to you. Boomer. Boomer! Oh, where you been, Boomer? Hello, Chief. How are you today? I'm fantastic. Praise the Lord Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, and my God. I'm fine. How are you, Boomer? I've been busy, says Boomer. I've been busy too. I was busy being sick for about a month or more off and on, helping my son get through with all of his high school and get into college. He's been doing great, by the way. Some of y'all asked, he's doing great. He told me tell people that he had 435 views this morning, and he's trying to get 500 views, and I don't know why 500 is stuck in his head. But I said, I'll try and tell the people, you're trying to get your other, what is that, 65, I guess. Anyway, he's trying to get to 500. Hi, Chief. Hi, Chief. Rick from Australia. Rick from Australia, the land down under. Okay. Uh, you think these audits might keep police from acting when they need to, such as what happened in Santa Fe, Texas recently? I wasn't aware that the police acted differently in Santa Fe, Texas. That's the first I heard of that. I watch uh, Fox News Channel a lot. I watch CNN to counterproduct that, and then I watch MSNBC and I see what they say on the other channels. So I'm probably 60 or 70% Fox News and 40 between the other ones, and then I do scan the internet for other stories. I think that the auditors have created such awareness with the public, police, and politicians that it's a great thing overall. But all great things have caveats, so it could create a police officer not to react the way they're supposed to. So that could be counterproductive. But I think it's way more productive than counterproductive. Let's see. Well, it's 90 and the kids were wearing a trench coat. That would be your first clue. If I die out here, I'm sorry. I plugged this in, but it keeps telling me low battery, even though it's plugged in on USB. So if it goes out, don't hate on me. And if you can help out, You got my Damond 4040, DAYMOND 4040 at yahoo.com. That's my PayPal account. If you can do anything to help out, I appreciate it. If you can't, I understand. I don't want to harp on it. One more time, Damond, DAYMOND 4040 at yahoo.com. Let's see. Thank you. Uh, so right, that should have gave it away. Yeah, you know, if somebody's wearing a bikini in the winter, that's a little off. And if somebody's wearing trench coats in the summer, that's a little off. Not illegal, but highly questionable. We had a woman who was probably 400 pounds, and she was often seen in a one piece or a bikini, and it might be 30 degrees outside, and she would grease herself from head to toe with Vaseline. And we had a mental deputy, and this was in Hunt County, Texas, Greenville, it's the county seat, about 45 miles east of Dallas, down close to Lake Tawakoni. Anyway, the mental deputy, uh, they come up with this thing in the 80s, having a mental deputy in every county to take care of mental subjects and so forth. He had to go get a blanket, a large, large, oversized blanket, and I think he had to have something sewed into it too. I mean, it's like for uh, California queen size bed and rope. And it'd take him and other deputies to throw that over her and roll this around her to take her back to Terrell State Mental Hospital. She didn't mean no harm to nobody. She just had something crazy in her head where she liked to run around like that. And then a lot of times she just stripped naked. It was a sight to see. Let me tell you what. I've dealt with a lot of psychopaths and psycho nuts in my time. I had to take a lot to this hospital. True, and the perp in Santa Fe was a teen prone to do strange things. Yeah, uh, I I agree, and what I'm saying is there's a really fine balance between liberty, 95% with 5% reasonable, normal, logical security. That's great. But I ain't, but you know, I ain't giving up none of my liberty for your security. I take care of my own security. Uh, but when people are acting strange, that's not a crime. We have a lot of people that do quote strange things compared, you know, it's 10% of the people do 90% of the crimes in the United States. Okay, it takes the other 90% to do the other 10%. So, you know, uh, you're the one who took her off my hands. Thank you. Okay. What's this one? I was talking to a task force police officer that's assigned to the local drug task force, and I was talking to him about some of the Israeli security measures where you have a section here that is a metal detector that is manned by a trained police officer or security officer with police powers on school premises. Nowhere else, just school premises. Unless something starts there and he's in hot pursuit of chasing somebody on foot, then it extends. Well, you got 20 or 30 feet with chain link fences that goes up to a secondary metal detector. So these people come through single file. They got a deputy here and a deputy here. That deputy can push a thing and shut that door and lock it, or this other chain can be locked by pushing a panic button and it sets off the school. So if anybody wants to run through the first one and it buzzed, they got a second chance to stop them before they get in the school. And they could actually lock him in the chain link fence between here and here. So there's two or three of these things set out, and so people can go out several doors, but there's a first system and a second system. It's almost like being in a prison for safety, but it's a small inconvenience. It take the average person about 1 minute to go through the system on a normal basis. See, Chief, look up Louisiana is making school zone gun friendly. They're taking the laws off the books on a gun free zone. That is fantastic. Look, there's I don't know how many times if we hadn't have bought into this Bill Clinton crap, he tried to distract from all of his criminal activity constantly. School zones do not need to be gun free zones. Every time a unlawful gun owner or a lawful gun owner that went bananas and misused a gun, it was always a lawful gun owner, being a police officer, constable, sheriff, or marshal, or me or you or the next guy or gal that had a gun that took them out. Wounded them, took them out, whatever, smoked them, smote them, slayed them, whatever. It was one of us that had a gun. So they just had a deal in Oklahoma City where they had somebody that was a lawful gun owner that brought a guy down that was attacking a woman, I believe her daughter. I only saw about 2 minutes of it, and I didn't get the whole story, but that was the basics. And we know that 70,000, keep that in your mind, 70,000 plus lawful gun owners shoot, hold for police, or terminate the life of an unlawful use of a gun by another man or woman 70,000 times. Now, if you took away the lawful gun owners, that would just leave the unlawful gun owners and they would prey on all the rest of us. So anytime somebody talks about taking away gun rights or infringing on them any way, shape, form, or fashion, I go nuts and I start calling congressmen and senators, and I tell other people to call them and tell them, hell no. Not local, county, state, nothing. We're carrying our guns. We're exercising the Second Amendment, our self-defense, the right to live. That's a basic, essential function. Whether it's a rock, a stick, a baseball bat, or a gun, that's one of the reasons I belong to Self-Defense Fund, and I'm an affiliate with them. So if you go to Self-Defense Fund and wrote the promo code in chief, they'll give me credit for that and they'll help promote my show, and I'd really appreciate it. And if somebody breaks into your home, they carjack you, they invade your business, they do anything and you use a gun, a baseball bat, a rock, a brick, a car, you use anything, it doesn't matter what it is, to defend yourself, and you're sued or you're criminally charged, Self-Defense Fund don't have no caps and they don't have all these gimmicks. They just come down and defend your right to self-defense. They're not like all these other BS places. They're for real. And I've seen them go even further than that. Now, in their contracts or their disclosures, they don't have to, but they're righteous people and they're right-minded. And if your lawful gun led in any way to your arrest, they come out to defend you too. Selfdefensefund.com. Selfdefensefund.com. And put in chief in the promo code, okay? That way I get credit and they'll help me with funds maybe to travel and promote my show. And it'll be one of the smartest things you've ever done. And I think for an individual like a man or a woman, it's like $12.50 a month. How cheap can you get? My God. Let's see. I have to go. It was nice talking with you. Boomer, boomer, boomer. All right. Be safe. Idaho. Exposed. Yo, Chief. I'll call you today, brother. Right on. Right on. Let's see. Do you think about giving any RFID tag to lawful carriers so police can scan them for? No. I don't like those things that run around scanning every tag in every freaking parking lot on every street because it's just a freaking revenue machine. They pay $2,000 or $5,000 or whatever for this little thing that just scans all these tags all over the place. Now, if a tag is associated with a man or woman for a warrant for their arrest, uh, that's good. But when it's just, is a tag expired and it's in a private parking lot, you know, you're over there dealing with expired tags instead of patrolling the neighborhoods. It's just, to me, it's just not good. Let's see here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some of this new age police technology I love. Some of it I strongly disapprove of. And because, just like these tasers, there are instances when a taser is useful and needful. But overall, I think it's misapplied half the time. That's my opinion. I've just seen way too many videos where a man or woman has had cardiac arrest, they've had respiratory disorders, they fell down and hit their head just like C.J. When he was tased by Almost Park, Texas police chief, he hit his head. Now, sometimes everything doesn't come up right away. So it may be 6 months or a year from now, and all of a sudden he starts having memory problems. I'm not saying he will, but I'm saying he could. Okay, and he did suffer, and that was painful for something that he was lawfully doing. So a lot of police are trigger happy with them tasers, like, well, that's not my real gun, but it's causing a lot of damage, and a lot of times it does cause the death of people. So when you look at the times that police have shot people in the arm or leg, or shot them and they lived and they recovered, versus the time they were tasered and they died or had serious injury, sometimes the gun and the taser, there's not a tremendous amount of difference in it. That's not the police tagline, but that's true. Let's see. Tasers are developed incorrectly on purpose, which then to a cop gives them the right to use deadly force. Just saw this happen on Live Leak. That's from Michael Lucas. Hey, thanks for the comment. And there's a lot of things about these tasers I despise. I really despise them. And let's see. Uh, Later hater. Let's see. The people in Almost were standing on the corner with an assault rifle, though did they expect? Well, in Texas, since 1835, any man, woman, or child, they didn't put an age on it, could carry a long rifle. So a 22, a shotgun, AR-15, they could carry anywhere, any place in the state of Texas. There wasn't limitations on it. And then when Texas went from a Texas state republic to they went to Texas. They went from the Republic of Texas to the Texas State Republic, so it meant they were going to become a union state. The law remained the same, and it's still the same to this day. So, like kids like me, we carried 22 rifles and shotguns in the racks of the back of our pickup trucks and in cars. And those that didn't, in the trunk of their car, they usually had 1 or 2 rifles or shotguns for target practice. Like I was in ROTC, and we used them for target practice. We used to go hunting for rabbits and squirrels, have rabbit or squirrel stew. It was normal. Okay, not until the mid 90s, late 90s, did I see a lot of racks going out of trucks because they went to school parking lots or other places that was trying to prohibit guns under school safety. But when we carried guns to school, nobody got shot up, so you go figure. The almost park carries expected their rights to be upheld, defended by the police. That's correct. The police are taught and trained people that carry long guns can carry them anywhere, anytime, and you have no authority to go up to any man or woman carrying a long rifle and ask for ID or why they're carrying the gun. It's an inalienable right in Texas, and they expected the police to do their duty and do their job. So they tested the system. The police should have just kept rolling on by. They've done this in a lot of cities, and the police just waved at them or just kept going. This is a rogue agency. Let's see, assault rifle. So it is called an assault rifle, golf club, or an assault bat. I think that the Smith-Mundt Act propaganda was legalized in 2012 against the people of the United States. I've been here, said that. And I agree. I mean, so if I throw a brick at you, it's no longer a brick, it's an assault brick. Anything and everything can be an assault, whatever it calls. But that's only if you assault somebody else. It's not an assault in of itself. So my hands could be assault hands. They're just hands now. They're only an assault hand once I punch you. Then it becomes an assault hand, not before the fact. As they should have been, Michael Lucas surprise. Fully semi-auto then. I don't know. My God, I've been on here forever. If y'all got any last questions, go ahead and ask me. I am tired. I need to get something to drink. In fact, I've got me some water. H2O, good for the body and soul. If you got any last questions, go ahead and ask before I put anybody else to sleep. And I'll do the best I can to answer. Okay, peace out, be safe. Thank you. Current time frame. Iced tea here. Cheers. Thank you. Assault revoked. Yeah, okay. Anybody want me to give a shout out to anybody? Ted Nugent, don't drink water. Fish screwing it. Drink beer. That was funny, Ted. I'm a preacher and that was funny. Some people say it's inappropriate, but I thought it was funny. I did. I thought that was funny. Drink beer. So they say, medical doctors say, 2 beers or 2 glasses of wine or like a shot of whiskey, but especially beer helps clean out your bladder and kidneys. So if you're not drinking to get drunk, I don't personally see a problem in it. Okay? Now they talk about Jesus made the water into wine. Well, I interpret that to be new wine. New wine is not fermented. So it's just grape and it's clean and it tastes good. Now after it sits, then it gets fermented. So I believe it was new wine. And the enzymes in new wine help you digest stuff, not wine that's fermented. Now fermented may help. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. My dad's a Baptist deacon, and I even make him laugh from time to time. Right on. I was raised Baptist. Then I become non-denominational. Then I become Pentecostal. Now I'm kind of Pentecostal in my thinking, but I'm a reasonable and logical Pentecostal, should I say, non-denominational. The denomination, a Jack Baptist. Okay. I think that if things are in moderation, they're sensible, they're normal, they're logical, I believe it's okay. Just like I believe in medical marijuana. If it's for a medical purpose, if you're self-monitoring, you have a doctor helping monitor, it's like any other medication, it's natural and normal. If you use a little bit, it's healthy. If you use too much, it's unhealthy. Like a couple of beers is healthy, too much is unhealthy. Great stream, brother. Thanks, Chief. I've been here. You're welcome. I'm going to start trying to do these on a weekly basis if possible. That way, people can ask questions and maybe I can grow the audience and maybe I will share this with people. Thank you for your time, Eugene, Cheryl. If I mispronounce your name, I'm very sorry. I remember the patent leather shoe debacle. What was that about? The patent leather shoe debacle. I'm willing to learn. My medical condition is that it kind of sucks when I'm out of weed. That's funny. Yes, a friend with weed is a friend indeed. That's what the motto used to be in the mid 80s. And I used to be brainwashed by the government propaganda on cannabis, and it was the devil's weed. The church was preaching it, and the government was preaching it, and Reagan had a war on drugs. But I've come to know too many people with too many very serious conditions that no other medicine helped, and either CBD oil or a a certain cannabis medical marijuana formula that they had to go back and forth. Even psychotic medicine didn't work, but this here cooled them out. I've known former judges and police officers, prosecutors, uh, to use these things. I knew a sitting prosecutor, judges and the public knew that he had glaucoma and that he had a source that he got marijuana from, and a few times a week he would smoke cannabis, and it was pretty well known. And nobody did nothing about it. I think they did an episode on 60 Minutes with him one time, but I'm not positive. But anyway, see, I'm a funny guy. I got a great sense of humor. Let's see. I actually very rarely smoke pot now, and I live in Colorado now. Would have loved it up here when I was still ahead. I know somebody that's planning on moving to Colorado just because it is cannabis friendly. They've got arthritis pretty bad. They were in a motorcycle accident and other things just for that purpose. Hello. Greetings from Central Florida. Yay. This is from Dust Pick, P-I-C-C. Howdy. Woo-wee. Well, my God, this is going to take like 6 hours to upload this thing. It's taking over and over and over and over and over and over. Anyway, I hope, let's see, my doctor's dad was an MD. He prescribed marijuana. My dad had the sign on his desk from his dad's office saying so. That's that's good enough for me. Cannabis friendly. You can say that again. Everybody up here is stoned. Stoned to the bone. That was another saying in the 80s. Stoned to the bone. We need to decriminalize CBD, not legalize. Just saying it's about the profits. I think, seriously, they talk about in this day and age. Well, until 1934, you not only could grow hemp and cannabis, but you was encouraged to do so by your government. My grandmother, not great grandmother, my grandmother grew this stuff, and her people grew some of this stuff on the family farm for rope and various other things till 1934, 1936, somewhere in there. She's deceased now. We've lost her. Uh, 50 USC 4305B, Section 2. Ghost in the Dark, I guess it is. Thanks for that. I like those USC code numbers. I love those things. George Washington made it a point to be home for the hemp harvest every year. Yeah, people study their history. They'll know from the time we was a colony till 1934, 1936, it was completely legal. But J. Edgar Hoover and some churches and whatever said, let's call it the devil's den, the devil's doings. Of course, they had other things like hashish and opium dens and laudanum and all this stuff that people were smoking through pipes and getting psychotic. They were having just total mental breaks. I understand that, but this ain't that. You know, that's kind of like comparing uh, Everclear to near beer, like 3.2 beer or 2.3 beer. I think it's 3.2, 3.2% versus 180 proof or 190 proof grain alcohol. They're just so far apart you can't imagine. We're not talking about heroin. We're not talking about opiates. We're talking about cannabis. Okay, and we're not talking about genetically modified uh, super high stuff where you go to outer space. But you know you can't legalize morality. You can only promote it. Yeah, my granny used it in POTUS in Arkansas back in the day. Yep, I know people up to the 60s and probably early 70s that some of them was doing it, but then Richard Nixon got this big push on it and the DEA, and they were scared of the big crackdown, but a lot of people did it in POTUS's, yeah. It's stronger than steroid ropes. Yeah. It was DuPont wanted synthetic rope to be used, banned industrial hemp. The Navy suffered at the beginning of World War II because of that. Yeah, that's right about DuPont. I forgot about that. That's just like, oh, what's his name? One of the Rockefellers was into gasoline where other people was into clean alcohol for vehicle consumption, and they actually had a lever where you could do gas or alcohol where the car would work on either one. But he started pushing the temperance movement to get rid of all alcohol. See, they could have put 1 gallon or 2 gallons of gasoline per every 100 or 1,000 gallons where you couldn't drink it, it'd be poisoned. But he said all forms of alcohol, and he got all the church women and ministers against it. So when they did away with the alcohol for cars, which would let your engine run clean forever practically, uh, and almost no wear and tear, at least 90% less than gasoline, then his gasoline went way up. So follow the money and you understand the law. Unfortunately, wars are started by false flags, yes. Sorry to hear that, Ted. Let's see. I've been here. Cool. That's pretty cool. Let's see. Let's see. About 10% of my little amount. Let's see. I don't guess that was a question for me. Okay, I'm going to try and wrap it up here in the next 2 minutes. Any last questions? Hit me up. Is it says it now legal? I guess it's now legal to again to grow industrial hemp in Pennsylvania. Imagine that. Russell saying that. I didn't know that. Certainly not disputing it. I just didn't know. We're down to about a minute. Any last questions? I'm wrapping this baby up. Good seeing you, Chief. Thank you. Thank all of you. Thank all of you. God bless you. I pray you all prosper. I pray everything goes your way today and every day in the name and blood of Jesus Christ, my Lord, Savior, and God. Bye. So long. Have a great day.